Beginning with a simple but tragic fact, a 38-year-old British man is dead, and all for a second hair transplant. He travelled to the Chinik clinic in Istanbul, seeking not life-saving intervention but cosmetic improvement. Instead, he was rushed to hospital before the surgery had even begun, and he died within hours. An autopsy is underway. The Turkish police have launched an investigation into what they call a reckless homicide, and a grieving family is left to repatriate a body that should never have needed rescuing in the first place. This isn't a standalone incident, it's part of a pattern, a dangerous growing industry, where profit, marketing gloss and desperation intersect. Turkey now performs an estimated 60% of the world's hair transplants. Prices undercut the UK by thousands of pounds. Clinics boast of international accreditation and glossy Instagram testimonials. But in some cases, oversight is minimal, communication poor, and aftercare almost non-existent. It's really important to have a reliable system in place, to know that what you are trying to get for health tourism is safe. Not all clinics are unsafe. Some are world class. I've visited some of them. But the real risk is not only the individual surgeon or the clinic, but the system that encourages patients to make major health decisions without adequate support, regulation or recourse, without even knowing the language. What we're witnessing is not merely medical tourism, it's medical abandonment. And according to the British Association of Aesthetic Plastic Surgeons, complications from surgery abroad have nearly doubled in the last 3 years. These are not minor scars or bruises. We're talking about infections, sepsis, blood clots, embolisms, disfigurement, and in the worst cases, death. And most of these complications stem from Turkey, because that's the place where people go. There's also other places in Eastern Europe, Poland, Romania, Lithuania, but the appeal is understandable. Lower costs, faster procedures, luxury packages. But the fine print can be lethal. The Chinik clinic says all the right things. The man had a prior successful transplant there. All pre-operative tests were carried out, including an ECG and a chest x-ray. He collapsed after the procedure, they say, not during. But that's precisely this moment, the preparatory phase, that exposes the fragility of the system. If a patient dies before the operation, after supposedly passing all medical assessments, then we must question the quality, accuracy and independence of those assessments. But what happens if something goes wrong abroad? Who do you call? What rights do you have? Is there any recourse? In most cases, the answer is very little. NHS doctors are left to pick up the pieces, often with limited information and irreversible damage. The patient returns not for a follow-up consultation, but for emergency treatment. That's not a health system, it's roulette. And the industry knows this. Surgeons who barely speak English, who cannot communicate with the patient, aftercare that vanishes once you board the return flight, consent forms that are vague, unread or coercive, clinics upselling procedures at the last minute, as in the heartbreaking case of Anne Telston, who died after a last-minute decision to undergo additional surgery in Istanbul. She sent the hospital videos of her swollen arm, but never received a reply. The problem is the interconnect between Turkish health support and Britain, and it's all about insurance agents in the UK that are not really competent or working together, working effectively. It's about people who are not saying the same thing to everybody, people who are giving one bit of information to one person, another bit of information to another person. Believe me, I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I've experienced some of it. And in that climate, you don't know who to trust. And it certainly isn't the case that the Turkish system is badly managed. The Turkish system is excellent, for the most part. Yeah, there's a few sharks around the place, of course, but the Turkish system is excellent. I've been in Turkish hospitals. They work often significantly more effective than the British counterparts. One French student, Mathieu Vigier-Latour, took his own life after a botched beard transplant reportedly carried out by an estate agent impersonating a surgeon. These are not anomalies, They are warnings ignored. And it's about people looking for a cheap deal, getting a cheap deal, and not doing the research in advance, for the most part. It's not about shaming people who seek affordable treatment. The blame lies not with the patient, but with a system which is transnational, loosely regulated, and irresponsibly marketed, that thrives on the illusion of safety while outsourcing risk. The UK government, too, bears some blame. There's no effective public information campaign warning of the dangers. There's no agreement with Turkey or other host countries to ensure standards and offer redress. And the NHS, struggling under its own pressures, cannot keep mopping up the consequences without greater intervention. We need to have a better system a better relationship between British medical practice and Turkish medical practice if we're going to have this relationship in the first place, which we are. I had my own brush with that problem when I found myself getting Turkish support for because I fainted, and although I had travel insurance, the travel insurance is still not paid, and I suffered nearly a month. Well, over a month, I think. No, a month of chaos because of the travel insurance company, which was called Stay Sure. It gave me no assurance at all, and the case still isn't finished. So what should change? First, we need a proper regulatory framework for medical tourism, beginning with transparency. Clinics advertising in the UK must publish safety records, complication rates, and aftercare guarantees. Second, any UK citizen planning overseas treatment should be offered an advisory consultation, not to restrict choice but to inform it. Third, the NHS should be empowered to recover the cost of treating complications caused by botched cosmetic procedures abroad. If you take the profit, you share the responsibility. Finally, and most importantly, we need a cultural shift. Hair loss, ageing, insecurity, these are deeply human struggles, but they shouldn't be resolved by flying blind into surgery with strangers in foreign cities. Health is not a holiday, it's a sacred trust, and when you hand your body over to someone else, you shouldn't have to pray that they are telling the truth. The death of a 38-year-old man in Istanbul may be legally ambiguous, but morally it's as clear as the blood on a scalpel. It happened because no one stopped him, no one advised him, no one was accountable, probably nobody was translating, and it will happen again. And unless we treat health tourism with the seriousness that it demands, in Britain and in Turkey and in other countries, we will continue to export our vulnerabilities and to import tragedy.